founded Mentor Together.
Right.
What exactly you do here? What should mentoring entail?
Okay, so I founded Mentor Together in 2009 when I was 23. The main motivation is best captured, I think, by this one saying that says a lot of people have gone much further than they thought they could because someone else thought they could. So this whole idea of having guides in your life, people who can intuitively understand maybe because of their own life experiences where something you're facing is not the end of the world, something that you think you can't do, you can actually do. So the idea of providing these people to youngsters is actually very intuitively appealing. For me personally, I was on a very different trajectory because I was just very academic and extremely geeky my entire life. So I was very set onto that path of possibly graduating well and going on to a job. But at many stages in my life, actually, people took chances on me and sent me to leadership conferences, fellowships. I studied in Mount Carmel College here, and in my final year, I got sent to a leadership conference in New York City, where I was part of a group of just 50 undergraduates that were brought together from around the world. And
Very
personally,
nice.
I never thought, I was thinking I must have got a backdoor entry here, you know, what am I doing here? But once I came back, I really started thinking of how I can connect to my community. And I started doing some work with the co-trustee in Mentor Together, Dr. Rajiv Gowda, in campuses around Bangalore, where we saw that this ecosystem of mentoring is solely lacking. You know, most young people want someone to just sit. You asked me the question of what does mentoring entail, right? At its heart, it's a very, very relational process. It's about setting up a relationship which is very authentic, which is very empowering in how authentic it is, as well as which has a high level of engagement. You know, typically, I think great mentors are people who don't have to take that time out to continually invest in you, but then they do it because they see potential and not problems in young people. So to set up such relational processes, and I thought that Bangalore had so much opportunity for that, right? So many well-educated people who've really benefited from just being at the right place, and so many people, again, because of the inequality of opportunity, who will see such different lives. So to set up this ecosystem of relationships, I set up Mentor Together.
That's great. What do you say? Who do you mentor?
Okay.
The misguided youth?
Yes.
Or those who suffer abuse and neglect?
Right. So we typically identify youth for mentoring based on the fact that if they don't have a reliable, trusting adult in their life, there have been different kinds of youth. We do mentor youth who've been abused and neglected. We do this in partnership with the government, who run these homes for girls in different places. So that's a program that we run in Mysore. So there actually they've already...
Mysore I will ask you later.
Sure. So there the youth have already suffered one level of abandonment with adults, you know, and that can negatively affect their psyche. So what we try to do is give them a corrective relationship with an adult who's more trusting, who's more reliable. A second area where we mentor youth is if they are, if their family, if they do have adults in their life, but because of different reasons like having single parents or parents who are really just struggling so much to just put food on the table, these youth don't get access to information and networks which could really propel their lives forward. So we really try to build up this like a social network of sorts, you know, that aggregates information, opportunity, access to more skills and brings these to the youth.
Okay. Funny, getting back to Red Bus, getting back onto the Red Bus. What is Red Bus's revenue model?
Okay, so on every seat sold, we make a commission from the bus operator. So it's a very simple.
That is the only revenue.
Yeah, that's
you
only.
Don't have anything else.
Nothing.
How many of you are there running this show?
The 3 co-founders who started it, but right now the team is about 450-500 people spread across 14 locations in the country.
It's all over.
All over the country. We have an office in Assam, in Bihar, in Jammu.
Online booking of hotels, airlines, trains and buses is a big thing now.
Absolutely.
Book
Yeah.
a ticket through online. What do you think has been Red Bus's competitive edge in view of all these things?
Yeah, I think our competitive edge has been to focus on one product and do the product really, really well. And many of our competitors do multiple products, and it's a function of the bandwidth. I mean, how much each person can give to, how much time each person can give to these multiple products versus how much each person can give to one product.
But now that you are a global shaper, will you have time to time for this initiative?
I'm trying to make time. Time is always a challenge because being an entrepreneur, I'm learning a lot of things, how to manage a 500 people company. And by the time I learn, probably it'll be 600 people. So that's always a challenge. But I have commitment to make time because I can relate to it. I can empathize with the cause. Besides that, there are a lot of other things that I think we can do in our capacity. For example, as a part of this initiative, we've identified some people who could come and do mentoring, who could come and do internship in organizations, and then we are extending that thing within Redbus for 5 people of different backgrounds. So that is one thing that I could do in the.
What was the question?
Question is, do you find time for an initiative as a global shaper?
Absolutely. I would say that for me, like all of these communities actually provide so many sources of inspiration, so many sources of different perspectives, because they really transcend like just one single. And I think when we work in our initiatives, it becomes like a silo. We're just battling these problems all the time by ourselves. So these networks are actually extended families. And for me, I think most of these fellowships have ended up being like so catalytic, you know. I can identify so many when I was 19, when I was 20, when I was 23, that were all, I would say, played a role in who I am today. So I see it as both investments in me that benefit me, as well as investing in these communities to pay it forward, because so many others have invested in me as well.
Arundhati, I believe you work with a group of girls
Yes.
who stay in a government home in Mysore.
Yes.
What has been your experience so far?
Oh, it's been amazing, because at one level we do identify potential in them, but we also learn so much in terms of resilience from them. Most people may think mentoring is like this unidirectional thing, you know, you come in and you give all your gyan to these young people. But actually it's a relationship where you learn so much about yourself by just observing how other people are, how their lives are. So the girls in the home typically would come from families, either they've been abused and kept identified and put in these homes, or they've run away, or they're orphans, or they've been abandoned. Their families can't take care of them. And personally, I think there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't have a great life because of these things that happen to them. So what we do is we identify great women professionals. So, and most often they come from companies in the community. They each have 1 or 2 mentees. They meet them every week almost, and they go through these activities on life skills, language skills, and it's been so great to identify so many excellent people. So in Mysore, we have a huge batch of mentors from Infosys, and they've personally way exceeded our ideas of how much their commitment should be. And on the girls' side, actually, we learn so much from them, and I've really seen our role as being someone in their corner. We don't come in with agendas of this is all what I want to get out of them. You know, we're not outcomes oriented. We're relationship oriented.
Somebody wants to get in touch with you, Arundhati, to become a mentor.
Yes.
What's the process involved?
So they go on to our website, mentortogether.org. There's a simple application to apply to be a mentor. Once we identify their background and we can see, so we typically match on a need and on a shared academic career or a personal interest. When we initiate a process, we are quite stringent about our process just because we want people to understand the commitment itself. Our mentoring relationships are for 1 year. We don't want mentor attrition. We don't want you to fall out of the program at some point because it adversely affects the youth. So we actually do 2 rounds of applications, 1 round of an interview, as well as we speak to your family and your co-workers, try and understand if you're ready for this mentoring role. After that, we actually provide you close to 9 hours of mentor training, where we help you understand the right types of expectations to set from the relationship, the right type of skills to build. And then we match you to a mentee and we curate your relationship. So we don't just match you and disappear. We help you understand at every point how you could be making more of the relationship. What type of opportunities can you give your youth?
Do you have a ceiling on age?
Not at all.
Is there an age limit?
Not at all. I mean, in our Mysore program, we have a mother and her daughter mentor. They both come in together. Absolutely. And in fact, there's no age limit when people suddenly become a good mentor. You know, you can do it at 23. A lot of our mentors are 23. You can do it at 62.